Hey everybody, can you hear me? I just thought I'd hop up on YouTube and start talking about more chord melody stuff. I did a lesson maybe a couple of weeks ago where I talked about the chord melody idea, where you're thinking about what the melody is doing. The chords with the melody notes on top. So like third, sharp 11, fifth, numbering your chords by what the melody is doing, as opposed to what the bass note is doing. So organizing your thought process, like, okay, here's a major chord with a major 7 type voicing with the 5th in the melody, 6th in the melody, 7th in the melody, 9th in the melody, stuff like that. And I wanted to talk about how we can apply that to learning tunes, or playing chord melodies and learning tunes. So I have this example of this tune up on the screen. This is the Stan Getz version of Like Someone in Love. And I've got it organized in something that I call a big number, little number chart. So the big number is the chord function, and the little number is the melody function in relation to the chord that you're on. And I don't have a specific key because I want it to be thought of as, if you're thinking of it numerically, you can transpose it to any key, no problem. So what I have here is I was playing it in A flat. That's the Stan Getz recording. So here's an A flat major, so it's a 1 chord, and there's a 3rd in the melody. So the big number is the A flat, and then the little number is the 3 as the melody. Does that make sense? And then it goes to a 4 chord and has a 7th in the melody. Happens to be the same melody note. So 1 chord with the 3rd, 4 chord with the 7th, and then a 3 chord with the root, and then a 6 chord with the flat 7. So I can play it like a skeleton, like that, like. No. Crap, what is that? No. Sharp 5. And repeat. Third and 5th. And then 5th, 9th, 6th, 11th, 13th, 5th, and then 3rd, flat 3rd, flat 3rd, flat 7, and then flat 3rd, and then no. Sorry. And then 4, 3. So that's just the skeleton, just the bass and the melody. So now if we do fill in the middle, so we've got the 3rd and a root, you can do this chord or this chord. Or you can even do something more colorful if you want to. Might be too dense. But Does that make sense? So I think this is a really useful way to learn tunes. So learning the chord progressions and then learning the melody in relation to what the chord is doing at the same time. So you can play it in different keys. And say if I were to do it in a different key, say I roll the dice. Okay, this is live, so this is very risky, but what's that say? Can you see that? F. Okay, let's say I have to play it in F, okay? Then all I do is I know how to play a 1 chord in F, right? And I just think, okay, here's a 3rd on top. And then a 4 chord with the 7th on top. And then a 3 chord with a 1 on top. And then a 6 chord, which is a D minor with a flat 7 on top. And then a 2 chord with a root on top. And then basically it goes. So F. So 3rd. No, 3. Sorry, I meant to do that. So I'm learning the tune. I'm trying to think about the tune in a different part of my brain, and sort of this analytical part of my brain, as opposed to if you're learning a tune from the real book, you're looking at like names of chords, right? So if it was in F, it would say F major, and then it would say the 4 chord would be B flat major. You know, so you're sort of going on this like a visual. How can I say it? Like you're going from the visual part of your brain, and then it's triggering a place to play it on the neck. You're not really forced to be aware of what the chord is doing. You're not really forced to be aware that it's a 1 chord, that it's a 4 chord, and stuff like that. So I'm trying to encourage. I try to encourage all my students to think about what the chords are doing, not what it says on the page. Like. So if you can think about it like, okay, this is a 1 chord, this is a 4 chord, this is a 3 chord, this is a 6 chord. Then you can play it in a bunch of different keys, right? So in that F, 1 chord, 4 chord, 3 chord, 6 chord. You know, pick a different key. What's that say? C. 1 chord, 4 chord. Yeah, 1, 4, 3, 6. Yeah, 1, 4, 3, 6. Choose a different key, you know. What's that say? E. Okay. I didn't want to roll because it kind of like makes them. It's kind of loud on the mic. Plus, you can't see the dice, so I could be lying. That's an E. Okay, it rolled an E. So 1, 4, 3, 6. So if I were to think of the melody notes in relation to each of those chords, like this tune, like Someone in Love, it's right there. Okay. So a 1 chord with the 3 on top, a 4 chord with the 7th on top, and then a 3 chord with a root on top, and then a 6 chord, C sharp minor, with a flat 7 on top. So if I were to just do the skeleton, sorry, 1, 4, 3. Crap, what am I doing? Yeah, 1, 4, 3. Yeah, happens to be the same note. So, does that make sense? So we have. Yeah. Yes. First comment. The harmonic structure instead of just the notes. Exactly, yes. So if you can think about the harmonic structure instead of just the notes, then yeah, you can play it in any key, and then you can use it not just to learn chord melodies, but also to improvise and stuff like that too. So if I were to go back a step, go back to A flat, because I actually know it best in A flat, but you can kind of do, play around with the stuff a little bit more. Anyway, I kind of like doing stuff like that. So there's a way, so I actually do think learning tunes, learning chord melodies this way is super helpful. And probably one of the best ways you can learn good voicings, because usually good tunes are long lasting for a reason. Like the composer thought long and hard about the best melody for this chord. And if you know lots of chords with really cool melodies on top, then that means you can be a really good comper, I think. However, if you want to randomize your practice of this concept, here's something that I think is really helpful. If you take, say, a common chord progression like a 2-5-1. Let me see if I can write it here. So we have 2-5-1, okay? I'm going to write a Nashville number as opposed to the Roman numeral. So 2 minor, 5, and a 1, okay? Forget this. It's my cheap eraser right here. What I can do here is assign random numbers to this progression. And so what I can do is maybe I'll just do this. I'll go 1, 2, 3. That's not really random, but let's just do it. 4, 5, 6, 7. That will be a flat 7 on a 2 chord, so I'll put flat 7. And then 1, 2. Let's just maybe keep it going. It'll be a flat 3 if I go 3. And then a 4, that'll be an 11th, or 4. I'll just put 4. It'll be the same as the 11th. And then 5. Okay, so we have 4 different types of progression. So let's play a 2 minor with a root in the melody, and then a dominant with a second or ninth in the melody, and then we'll go to 1 with a third in the melody. Let's see what that sounds like. You roll for the key. It's C. Okay. Lucky me. Root, and then ninth, and then third. Does that make sense? So I played a D minor, a 2 chord in the key of C, with the root on top, and then a 5 chord with a ninth in the melody, and then a 1 chord with the third in the melody. And I'm using the sort of knee-jerk chord melody chords that I showed you in this other chord melody live video. That I use I'm using the chord voicings that are in my voicing modes book. Are you someone has a good question, I think. So are you simultaneously thinking of the notes as well? That's where I struggle. I'm trying to break the habit of relying on visual patterns. Okay, so I'm trying to think of the chord and the melody numerically. So if I do, let's see. So 2 chord, root, 5 chord, ninth, 1 chord, third. Let me pick a different key. So actually, let me just write down some random keys, okay? So we have the key of C, the key of A flat, and the key of, I don't know, E. How about that? It's the giant steps type. Everything's a major third away. I think that's a really good thing to learn. So we've, sorry. E with the root on top, 5 chord with the 9th on top. Does that make sense? So if I'm thinking of everything numerically, then it kind of accomplishes all the stuff I want to think about. Maybe not all the stuff I want to think about. I'm not necessarily thinking of labeling the note. Like here's the root on top in the key of D. D minor. D. It's yeah. Of course, it's impossible not to think D. And then the 9th on top on a G13 would be an A. So yeah, I don't even necessarily need to label it A. I'm just thinking here's a voicing with the 9th on top, the dominant voicing with the 9th on top, or here's the dominant voicing with the 9th on top up here. So if I did it up here, or so let's go on to the next example. So a two minor chord with a 4th in the melody. Can you see that? So with a 4th in the melody, and then a dominant chord with the 5th in the melody, and then a 1 chord with the 6th in the melody. Let's see what that sounds like. So it's going to be 11th and a 5th, and then so. Play it up here. It's a little low, maybe. Maybe I'll put it up an octave. So. Does that make sense? So if I were to do that same pattern, so 11th, 5th, 6th in these 3 different keys. Let me go to A flat. 11th, 5th, 6th. I got to remember that. 11th. And then the key of E. 11th, 5th. I mean, just, there's kind of some continuity to that melody in those 3 different keys. So it might be, it would compositionally make sense if I were to make a tune out of that or whatever. Like a lot of the standards that we know and love, there is some continuity to the melodies that exist. Like all the things you are, 3, 3, 3, 3. A lot of 3s, right? So if you can think of your tunes like that, I think it helps a lot. Let's go on to the next example. Look at 2 minor with a flat 7. That would be this, and then a root. Maybe, and then a 2nd. Oops. Does that make any sense? I really appreciate questions. So yeah. So another good. Yeah, that makes sense. I try to overload my brain thinking all the note names. Yeah. That no 2 people think of music the same way, and that's how we think is how we're going to sound, I think. But every instrument has their own sort of strengths and weaknesses, and for me, the guitar is very visual, very sort of geometric. I see, these different sort of shapes as images, like shapes. Like, did you ever play the game Perfection? Where when I was a kid, I had this game called Perfection, where you had to put all these different shapes in this thing, and you had a timer, and when it popped up, it just scared the crap out of you. But the goal was to match the shapes before the timer ran out. And as I was learning guitar, I was like, okay, that looks like that shape. That I don't know. I just had that visual. I still do. I think like this one, like a dominant 13 chord with a root in the melody. It just kind of looks like one of those triangle things. Anyway, a lot of my chords, they sort of moved up on the neck, like this, up, and then the more chords I learn, it's kind of important to have some that go back to. I kind of changed the subject, didn't I? So if I were to do, say, a 2-5-1, flat 7, 1, 2. So flat 7, 1, 2. Flat 7, 1. Oops. I like that. So flat 7, 2. No, 1. I like this. A dominant chord with this, with the root in the melody. I kind of think it sounds really cool. I call it the West Montgomery trapezoid. It's the same 4 notes as this, G13, but it's on this set of strings. It just has a nice fat sound. It just has a nice fat sound for jazz, yeah. So anyway, there's a G13 with a root in the melody on the B string. And if I go to the 9th in the melody on a C major chord, I can either do that, or I can either do that, or I can either do, I don't know, well, what can I do? That. So. Does that make sense? All right. So, numbers, big number, little number. So the big number, maybe I should talk about that somewhat, because learning tunes, the progression is very important, because that's really what most of our job is as a comping instrument. You got to know the changes. You have to be confident in what the changes are. Otherwise, if you just wait for the bass player to play the downbeat, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is, and say you're always comping, never on the downbeat, you're always waiting. It's going to be a little annoying to the soloist. You want to support the soloist by playing a lot of downbeats, sometimes anticipating, obviously. But and I think when I first started learning jazz tunes, it was overwhelming because I didn't see very much in the way of patterns in the way chord progressions worked. Obviously, 2-5-1, the idea of a 2-5-1, a lot of people learned that early on, because that is a way of thinking of, instead of 3 separate units of information, you can think of it as a chunk of information. And when someone says, oh, play a 2-5-1 in C, it's really one thought. It's not 3 separate thoughts. Again, the difference between learning a tune from the real book and learning it by analytical is you can start doing that. You can start chunking. It's a term I heard from one of my students who's a neuroscientist. You start taking that chunk of information and using it as one thought instead of 3 separate pieces of information. And that one thought can be transposed to different keys. So we have a 2-5-1 in C, we have a 2-5-1 in F, you know, so it just takes up one brain cell. And as I started learning more tunes, I started recognizing more patterns of things, not just like the 2-5-1, but things like a 3-6-2-5, or something that I heard called a backdoor 2-5, where it's like a minor 4 and a flat 7 dominant, you know, things like that. And I wrote this kind of as a joke, this jazz only does 10 things thing, where I had like 10 progressions that you see a lot through tons of different jazz tunes, and once you learn those 10 things, then learning new tunes becomes really easy. So like learning a new tune, like instead of having 32 different units of information to learn, if you do one chord by one chord, if you start learning it by chunks of information, like, okay, there's a 2-5-1, and then there's a 3-6-2-5, and then there's a backdoor. So, you know, a tune like this one, or you know, a tune might only do 3 things or 4 things, and it becomes way easier to learn them and retain them. Let's see, like I think one of the tunes that I thought was useful is what's it called? I Hear a Rhapsody. It looks overwhelming. It looks like it does a lot of stuff, but you know, it does a 2-5-1 in C minor. And then a 2-5-1 in the relative major. And then the 2-5-1 to 2. Sorry, 2 of E flat. So yeah, 2-5-1 to 6. And then a 2-5-1 to 1. And then a 2-5-1 to 2. And then it does this kind of thing that's unique to this tune. And then like a flat 6 to 5, but it's more like a minor. Flat 6-5, that's another popular chunk of a thing. And then 1. So flat 6-5 to 1. So that A section only does, you know, it does really 2 thoughts. A 2-5-1, 2-5-1 to 6, 2-5-1 to 2 to 1, 2-5-1 to 2, and then a flat 6-5 to 1. Does that make sense? So 2. And then it has the glue between those progressions that's like tritone subs. And then the bridge just goes 2-5-1 to the 3 chord. And then a 2-5-1 to 5. And then a minor 5 of that. Let me do the bridge again. Yeah, anyway, I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so some of you guys, Danilo 828208SS. Thank you for your comments. So yeah, he's discovered this, so it helped him so much learning jazz. Yep, common movements. Yep, there's like jazz after a while it becomes multiple choice rather than completely new things to do. Anyway, so I recommend practicing learning your groups of changes like this. Learn them numerically, learn your tunes numerically. I have a few different examples of things that I've done. Big number, little number charts. Here's Like Someone in Love, and what is this one? Oh, that's a big, okay. And then Lady Bird. Here's one that's kind of a useful tune, I think. A lot of people call it. Key. So. Goes to the key of the flat 3, and then so 1 with a 5th in the melody, and then a 2 chord of the flat 3, and then a 13 in the melody, and then back to the 1 chord with the 5th in the melody, and then a 9th. It goes to the flat 6, as in that's what it's a 2/5 of flat 6. Make sense? Yeah, big number, little number. It's cool. Sweet Georgia Brown. What else do I have? Oh yeah, so these are the scale tone voicings that I talked about in this other live video that you can check out. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I just thought that might be super helpful to y'all. Any other questions? Yep. Just comment below. Appreciate you. See ya.